I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's up my homies? UFC 270. This is going to be the betting breakdown. Alright, let's do it. Alright, so Jasmine Jasudavicius taking on Kay Hansen. Now, out of 10 times, this is what I think it would probably look like. Jasmine is the better striker, so I'm going to give her the one chance of a TKO. If she doesn't TKO, Kay Hansen is probably going to be a decision based off being the better striker. Now, Kay Hansen on the flip side, she's got good jiu-jitsu, arguably better wrestling. So I'm going to give her the submission chance instead of a TKO chance. If she doesn't submit Jasmine, it's probably going to be a decision based off of the wrestling. So really, I think it's a 50-50 matchup. And if it was a 50-50 matchup, that means the betting line should be around -110, 50% on both sides. Now, as we know, that is not the betting line. The current line for Jasmine is +190. +190 indicates a 34% chance, which is going to result in a 16% value on Jasmine Jasudavicius. 16%. That's a lot. Now, I know last week I had a nice percentage on Ramiz Brahimaj, and it didn't happen, right? It didn't happen, but this is what I'm going to do all year. So yeah, starting off, I like the underdog value on Jasmine. Man, I'm happy we don't have to speak about this fight anymore. Vanessa taking on Savannah. I do believe there's a fair chance that both girls can win a decision. If there's going to be a submission, I'll give it to Vanessa. If there's going to be a TKO, I'll give it to Savannah. Overall, 5 times out of 10, both girls. Now, that would put Vanessa around -110, and you could have got that price like a week ago. But she's not a -110 anymore, she's a -150, and that's going to lose you some value in my opinion. You know, if you're someone who, you know, sniped that -110 in a 50-50 matchup where you maybe lean 60% to Vanessa, that's a good bet. But if you're leaning 60% to Vanessa now and she's -150, which is 60%, then you're not really finding much value. For me, there's no way I'm betting it. Alright, we got a matchup between Matt Frevola taking on Genaro Valdez. Man, I would have to give Matt Frevola the decision chances because, you know, he's got a good gas tank. He's a good wrestler. He's been tested in the UFC. I would have to give him a submission chance too. You know, if Valdez gasses out the way he did on the Contender, Matt Frevola might choke him out. Now, the reasons why I would have to give Valdez a TKO chance, Matt Frevola has a dusty chin. It's a dusty chin. So if Valdez clips him, you know, there's a chance he might put him out. Overall, I would say it's a 6 times out of 10 for Matt Frevola, putting him around -150. Now, the actual line is -200, which is going to result in a -6% value loss. And that's maybe why you've seen a few people picking Genaro Valdez this week. You know, there's a little bit of value on his underdog line, but ultimately, I think Matt Frevola wins. I'm not going to bet it. -6% isn't the worst bet you can take. So if you're going to bet on Matt Frevola to, you know, put that fatiguing performance on Valdez, it might happen, you know, the bet might look good. For me personally though, I'm going to sit back and just fade this one. Alright, we got a matchup between Jack Della Madalena taking on Pete Rodriguez. Maybe a little bit harsh on Pete Rodriguez with this maths, but I think Della Madalena would get a TKO 6 times out of 10, a decision 1 times out of 10, and a submission 1 times out of 10. Which means I'm putting him around 80% probability -400. Now, if Pete Rodriguez is going to win the fight, I think it's only going to be a TKO. And I think that TKO maybe only happens 20% of the time. So yeah, the current line on Jack Della Madalena is -350, which is 77%. So technically, based on this maths, you are finding a 3% value on Jack Della Madalena. You know, if Pete Rodriguez was maybe a little bit more experienced, maybe I'd give him a bit more of a shot. But Jack Della Madalena, you know, 8 times out of 10, that's what I'm seeing. Alright, we've got Gravely taking on Oliveira. Now, on my full card prediction, I said this one would be a pick'em, you know, like a -110 each. But rethinking about this matchup, I'd have to give a slight lean towards Tony Gravely. But the reason why I'm picking Oliveira to win the fight, and the reason why I'm going to give him a shot to win the fight, as you can see, I think he's got the chance of finding a finish. You know, Tony Gravely, I'd give him like a 6 times out of 10 winning the fight. But every time I picture Tony Gravely winning this fight, I see it being a decision. You know, Oliveira on the flip side, I think he could find a submission. So overall, I would put Oliveira 4 times out of 10, which is 40% plus 150. But the current line is plus 190. So you're finding a little bit of value on the underdog, in my opinion. It's not a crazy amount, you know, it's only plus 6%. But if you're somebody who might want to fade Tony Gravely the way I want to fade Tony Gravely, maybe take a shot on Oliveira. But let's say you're somebody who thinks Tony Gravely is going to win the fight. You know, how many times out of 10 would Tony Gravely win this fight? If you're saying like 8 times out of 10, now you can bet on Tony Gravely because there's value. But if you're thinking Tony Gravely wins maybe 6 times out of 10 the way I see it, you know, there's a loss in value because Tony Gravely's minus 250, I think. You know, minus 250, I think that's too much. So yeah, plus 190 on Oliveira, I think there's value. Alright, so you've got Raoni Barcelos taking on Victor Henry. Out of 10 times, I think Raoni Barcelos, you have to give him a TKO, you have to give him a decision, you have to give him a submission. I would say more TKOs than decisions, I would say more decisions than submissions, and I would say, you know, there's a chance a submission does happen. Now, thinking about how Victor Henry would win the fight, I'm going to say both times being a decision. You know, on my full card prediction video, I spoke about maybe Victor Henry can get a Hail Mary TKO, but man, I think most times, if you're going to beat Raoni Barcelos, you're going to outwork him. You know what I'm saying? So I'll give Victor Henry a 20% chance, which means I'm giving Raoni a minus 400%, minus 400 price tag, not minus 400%, 80%. Now the current line is minus 500 on Raoni Barcelos, which is 83%. So technically you are losing a 3% value if you're going to play Raoni Barcelos based on my capping. You know, I said this on my last betting breakdown. If you're only losing like 3 or 4%, it's not a bad bet. But guys, you do have to think about, would you rather lose 3% value playing like minus 500, or would you rather lose 3% value playing like a minus 200? So again, you know, we have to decide when is it okay to lose a little bit of value based on our capping, and when is it not acceptable. This might be a time that it's not acceptable. You know, if you got Raoni Barcelos around minus 400, that's looking way better. And I know there's going to be people still playing Raoni Barcelos at minus 500 because you expect him to win. But a good example would be Makhmudmuradov against GM3. Now that opening line was acceptable, but after a couple days, you know, that Makhmudmuradov line was not acceptable and people were still playing it. You know, at that point, the value shifted. The value was now on GM3. So it's a numbers game, you know, it's all about playing the right number. I do believe Raoni Barcelos wins the fight, but at minus 500, I missed the boat. You know what I'm saying? Alright, this is actually a really difficult fight to try and find the right side. Now, out of 10 times, Morales taking on Trevin Giles, I do believe there's a TKO on both sides. You know, if Morales finds that TKO, he's just quicker, he's younger, 22 years old, got a lot of confidence. So if he finds that TKO against Trevin Giles, and you've got to remember, man, Trevin Giles got dusted by Duplessis, and he's cutting an extra 15 pounds of water weight. So I do believe there's a chance that Morales can find that TKO. Now, if he doesn't find the TKO, how many times out of 10 would Morales win a decision? Maybe 3 times out of 10. You know, Trevin Giles does have a good chance at winning this fight. You know, he's got more experience than Michael Morales. So I would have to give him like a 2 times out of 10 chance that it goes 15 minutes. And maybe you could flip that around. Maybe you'd put Trevin Giles 3 times decision and Morales 2 times decision. It all depends which way you're leaning, you know. Not every capper's going to have the same percentages. But yeah, like I said, this one is a difficult one to try and think about. But as you can see, guys, I've decided to go with Michael Morales 6 times out of 10, 60%, which is minus 150. So based on this capping, there is like a plus 5% value on Michael Morales. But there is a chance this capping might be slightly off. It could be Giles 6 times out of 10, and I've got this one wrong. I'm looking forward to this one though. You know, I think there's slight value on Michael Morales, and this one should be a good one. Alright, we got a matchup between Cody Stamen taking on Said Nurmagomedov. Now, based on my capping, I think this matchup goes the full 15 minutes. I don't really see a finish in this one. If I had to predict a finish on either side, maybe you'd say Saeed Nurmagomedov with like a flashy technique, you know, spinning attack or something like that. But out of 10 times, I think this one probably goes 15 minutes like 9 times out of 10. Which is pretty crazy because if you look at the fight to go the distance, it's not going to be anywhere near 9 times out of 10. But looking at the money lines, I believe the money lines are pretty spot on. Now for the breakdown, you know, I'm rounding up the number. So I'm going to say Saeed Nurmagomedov wins this fight 7 times out of 10, which is 70% minus 230. But I think the actual line should be just over 60% for Saeed, which is going to be around like minus 170, minus 180. Now the current line on Saeed Nurmagomedov is going to be minus 200, which is 66%. You know, I don't think there's a loss in value on Saeed Nurmagomedov. Now, Michel Pereira taking on the guy that literally retired James Vick. Man, that makes me sad. But yeah, this is what I'm going to go with on this one, guys. I'm going to say Michel Pereira, you've got to give him TKOs, you've got to give him decisions, you've got to give him submissions. And if I could, I'd give him a backflip too. If I could bet on that, I'd give him that. Now, Andre Fijo, I'm going to give him a TKO if Michel Pereira slows down. You know, this guy is primarily a boxer. There's a small 10% chance for Andre Fijo to get a decision. But if this matchup happened 10 times, I'd say Michel Pereira 7 times out of 10. Now the current line is minus 275, which is 73%. So you're losing about 3% value in the Michel Pereira line. However, guys, Michel Pereira was like minus 300, minus 350. You know, this is a much better time to play Michel Pereira than earlier on in the week. You know what I'm saying? And I might give the bookies what they want on this one. You know, minus 275. They want some action on the Michel Pereira side. I think at this point, it might be worth it. Alright guys, co-main event, we've got Brandon Moreno taking on Davison Figuerado. Alright, this is what my capping looks like on this one. Brandon Moreno, I'm going to give him a TKO chance. If you can drop Figueiredo with a jab, I'm going to give you a chance at a TKO. Now, I'm going to give Moreno more decisions than TKOs. And I'm going to give him more submissions than TKOs. But I'm going to give him more decisions than submissions. Now, Figueiredo on the flip side, I'm not going to give this guy a submission chance. And that's not to say that Figueiredo won't try it. You know, he's a black belt. He is really good on the mat. But Brandon Moreno is so smart that I think Figueiredo's best chances, only chances, TKO or a decision. Now, I'm going to give him more chance at a TKO than a decision because Figueiredo kind of slows down. So with all of that being said, I'm going to give Brandon Moreno 7 times out of 10 probability, which is 70% minus 230. Now, the current betting line is going to be minus 175, which is a 63% chance on Brandon Moreno. And that gives us quite a bit of value on the Brandon Moreno line. You know, you've got Figueiredo plus money and maybe that looks a bit more advertising, but I think the true value is going to be on Brandon Moreno. Just based off what you can see on the screen, you know, I think there's more chance he wins a decision. There's more chance he gets a submission. You know, I think Figueiredo's got to knock him out early, to be honest. Round 1, round 2, he's got to knock him out. And that might be the same situation for the main event, you know what I'm saying? Alright guys, that takes us to the main event. We've got Francis Ngannou taking on Cyril Gane. Now, on my full card predictions, I put both of these guys minus 110. And the reason why I put both of these guys 50-50, I said on the full card prediction, I think the chances of Francis Ngannou finding that kill shot, it's arguably the same as Cyril Gane avoiding that kill shot. You know, it feels like a 50-50. If I put Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane both 50-50 for what they've got to do, that means that I've really got to put Francis 4 times out of 10 for a TKO and Gane 4 times out of 10 for a decision. Because let's be honest guys, outside of that, there is a small chance that Gane could find a TKO. And there is a small chance that he could submit Francis Ngannou. That means that I would have to give a slight 6 out of 10 to Cyril Gane rather than making it a 5 apiece. And if I put Cyril Gane 6 out of 10, that means 60% minus 150. Now the actual betting line is going to be minus 150 already on Cyril Gane. Guys, if you bet on Francis Ngannou, you're arguably going to be sweating, especially if he can't find a knockout. Now, if you bet on Cyril Gane, you're going to be sweating, because for 5 to 10 minutes, if that one shot lands, you know, it's done. It's done for. And Francis does have like I'd say he has a 40 to 50% chance at finding that shot. And I'd also say that Gane has like a 40% chance at avoiding that shot. You know, GSP went on the Joe Rogan podcast one time and he said, it's all an illusion. Everyone can beat everyone. Whoever turns up on that particular day at that particular time, at that particular venue. You know what I'm trying to say? It's a trippy thing, man. This is a 50-50 matchup in my opinion. If I had to give a slight lean, 60% one way, I would say Gane, because he's got the decision chance. He's got the submission chance. But that doesn't mean that Francis can't punch a hole through this man's head, you know what I'm saying? It's a good main event, man. It's a great time to be a fan of the UFC. Alright, my homies, that was my full card betting breakdown for the money lines on all of these fighters. If you want all of my bets for this card, be sure to check out the Patreon, join my Discord. Alright, peace.